So, first of all, thanks for coming. This is our first in-person workshop with the Learning Science Lab since before COVID. So it's a bit of an experiment now. We're really excited to have people kind of in the room, able to talk face to face. And I know it's always a little bit of a journey to get into the room, so thank you for making it. If you're not familiar with the team, I want to introduce us really briefly here at the Learning Science Lab. What we do at Stern is a combination of things, basically two main tracks. Hey, come on in. Now we're just getting started. So we work on projects and partnerships with Stern leadership and faculty. So we develop tools, programs, innovative projects. And then we also offer a number of kind of standing services. So we create online resources, we have a regular newsletter, and we do workshops like this to help give you more information about how to incorporate technology and learning sciences into your teaching. And we have a few members from the team here today because, once again, we're in person. You may have seen Victoria out in the hall. We've got Ben in the back corner there, Kate by the camera. And we'll all be around because we're going to do an exercise later, and it will be available to assist with that if you have any trouble. Also like to introduce myself. So I'm Hugh Mackey. I'm Assistant Director of Instructional Media Production at the Learning Science Lab. So whereas most of the team is educational technologists, what I do is much more specifically educational media production. I work with them to get videos, interactive modules, graphics created, both logistically and in accordance with teaching best practices. Now there is one other member of the team, unusual addition that I want to introduce. That's pre-recorded Hugh Mackey. And that's because we're going to have a few things along the way that are hard to demonstrate live, especially when it comes to audio. So pre-recorded Hugh will be coming in from time to time and helping to demonstrate some things that we can't really show in our setup in the room. So pre-recorded Hugh, welcome.
Thanks, Hugh. The first thing I want to cover is just how important it is to have video that your students can...
Hey, I can't really hear you, Hugh. Could you move in a little closer?
Yeah, one second. Okay, is this any better?
It's a little better, but do you have like a microphone you could bring in maybe?
Let me see. Yeah, I've got one here. One second. Let me just pull this in and... Okay, how do I sound now?
Okay, you sound a lot better, but you're looking kind of dark. Could you maybe turn on a lamp nearby?
Yeah, I should have a lamp around here. One second. Okay, how about now? How do I look?
Okay, that's a lot better. Thanks. Go right ahead.
Great, thanks so much. Okay, well now that we've made a few of those changes, let me get back to it. I want to cover just how important it is to have video that your students can easily understand. Now your content is a huge part of that equation, but it's also important for your video to be properly set up technically. And that's what we'll review today. I'll be chiming in to demonstrate how things look and sound in video, but in person Hugh will be guiding you through the setup of your equipment, software, and uploads to create and share videos with your students. So, in person Hugh, you take it away.
Thanks very much. Fantastic work. So before we dive in, since we do have everybody in person, I did want to take a moment and just kind of check with the room and kind of see where you're coming from. What is it that you're looking to do with video in your teaching? And we did have that poll up briefly just to kind of ground the discussion a little bit with some common reasons why people are coming at this. Sometimes it's about making up for reduced in-person time. Sometimes it's to flip your class so you can kind of focus instruction in asynchronous time and then use in-person time for more discussion. Sometimes it's to maintain some instructor presence when you're giving feedback or, maintaining some offline conversation. Does anybody here have like a specific reason that brought them into the room?
Yeah. Every time I do asynchronous videos, I don't think any of my students watch it before the class begins.
Yes.
So it drives me insane. And so I just don't like it because a lot of effort goes in so that you can actually do the case study, but then you have to reteach them the methodology to then do the case study, and that's just a lot of wasted effort and time on their part too.
So you had to come in with a hard question, didn't you?
Oh,
No.
that's
Yes.
Great. That's great.
No, I think, Kim, you're getting at something really important and something that doesn't just apply to asynchronous video, right? It applies to the readings, it applies to all sorts of flipped classroom prep work. And that's giving some sort of further incentivization for people to complete it outside of just goodwill, right? That can be like an explicit quiz or like a knowledge check offline to ensure completion. And it might sound like a little bit of a sort of a stick out of the carrot and stick approach, but sometimes it's worth doing to make sure everybody comes because, yeah, you're going to be bottlenecked for those in-person conversations if you don't have that preparation.
So for an asynchronous, sorry to ask then, for an asynchronous this video, can you set up like, let's say it's an hour-long video instruction.
Mhm.
And you got,
An hour?
well, I don't know, I tried an hour, no one actually listened, so I went to 10 minutes. But for an hour, can you have the last 10 minutes with like an adjustable quizzing mechanism, so you can see whether they've learned the easy material and the hard material, like a GMAT type thing?
Yeah.
It just works at the end of a video?
So the short answer is yes.
Okay.
The long answer is we might need to talk afterwards about the specifics of that setup, just because it would be a little involved. And we're going to start with some more basic material.
Okay, sorry.
No, these are really good questions, though, and really important ones, because you're right. You can spend all the time in the world in a video. If no one watches it, what's the point?
I had the same experience as you.
Yeah.
I prepared like 20-minute segment. I recorded it myself in the office. I gave it to them. I hoped they would look at it, and then I'll take it from there in class. But I had to redo it in class.
Yeah.
So I don't know to what extent they are motivated to look at the videos and what I can do to make them.
I can tell you exactly what I do after this.
Yeah.
This is more about making the videos, but my students look at them.
How do they do it?
That's not what this is, workshop's really about, so let me talk to you.
We're gonna, yeah, we'll table that, but let's try to make sure we have some time for that discussion, because it's a huge one, right?
It's huge,
Yeah.
but this is about making the videos.
Yeah.
The quiz idea is a good idea.
Yeah. So, as Kim alluded to, most of this workshop is going to be about kind of the nuts and bolts, making those videos, making them understandable, polished, and relatively high production value. But I do want to spend just a moment to talk about the question of what to record. And to the point of everybody's questions here, that could be a whole workshop in and of itself. We're going to talk about some general guidelines, and then hopefully maybe we can spend some time at the end to talk about some more involved discussion about how to really incentivize that. But the first thing I wanted to mention, and it speaks to that 50-minute video, right, is to keep videos short. And you've probably heard this already, and you've probably even heard it in really stark terms, like, oh, after 30 seconds, everyone stops watching, right? Now, we're not making advertisements, we're not making music videos, so I'm not going to give you like a hard, fast timeline like that. But I'm going to say that as a best practice, it's still a good idea to shorten that as much as possible. I've got 15 minutes as a top end here, which is definitely kind of the top end. And when you start to hit that, I don't want you to think about cutting content. I don't want you to think about making things simpler. I want you to think about, where can I start to put some breaks in, right? Where can I start to chapterize this content, chunk this content, so that things are a little more modular? Because that's going to allow you to do a lot of things. For one, it's going to allow you to keep those videos focused, right? So that each of those videos really has like a key takeaway, key learning objective. It's very, very hard to kind of make a video work in other contexts if it's lesson 3 of your course. Much easier if it's like a concrete topic, if it's BATNA, right? So that's something that I want you to think about in addition to the time. Oh, Kim?
And if you break it up, you can ask them questions in between, so they can do a piece of it and then another piece of it.
Kim, did you steal my slides here? But yes, that's exactly right. If you break it up, now it doesn't just have to be 50 minutes of passive viewing, right? Now you can start to build an experience where maybe there's a formative assessment, there's a discussion prompt, there's an opportunity for them to take what they just saw and start to integrate it, internalize it, and apply it, which is going to help them learn it as well. And hopefully help to make things a little less potentially boring as well, because no matter how engaging a speaker you are, 50 minutes of straight watching is always a lot to ask of somebody. And as a practical matter, short, focused videos are going to be easier to reuse too. Again, because moving a whole lesson to a different course, hard to do. It might not fit the structure of that different usage. Moving a topic to a different course, much easier to do. It's probably something that you speak to in a variety of contexts, and with a focused short video, you can reapply it in those contexts. As a practical matter, it's also going to help you, because as you're recording, if you make a mistake, it's a lot easier to go back and re-record 5 minutes than re-record 50 minutes. So again, that's a brief touch point. Most of today really is about the technical side of it. It's how to set things up to maximize quality from an audio-visual perspective. But if you want to learn more, we do have more resources about this. We have an entire online guide called Recording Yourself for Teaching. We have several other workshops available that speak to things like slide design, so you can kind of engage in visual best practices, and a little more about how to structure video content. We're going to have links to all that in the material we send out afterwards, but I just want to make you aware of that so you can keep an eye out for it. But the main topic of today really is how to record. What I want is kind of get everybody familiar with the basic process, kind of front to back, of getting set up for a recording, making it, and making it available to students. And there's going to be 3 major steps to do that. The first is equipment and setup, right? You're going to need some equipment in place. It's not going to be a home studio that you have to build. I'm not going to ask you actually to use that much more than probably you already have for things like Zoom calls. It's going to be more about making sure that they're set up well and properly configured so they're the best possible quality. Then, if you're recording on a computer, you're going to have to use some software to do so. And so we'll take a look at some options that are available there and work through one here that is readily accessible to everybody so you can get some firsthand experience going through that configuration. And then, once you've got the video recorded, you do have to make it available for students. We'll talk about the best ways to upload that, to share that, and to control permissions so that you can make that readily available for students to view, including inside your course sites. The software part we'll try today, so you'll have an opportunity to play with that as well. But let's start with the first thing we need to get set up, which is the equipment, right? As mentioned, we're not going to go overboard with this. We're not going to do an entire studio setup. We're going to take pieces that you already have in place, that you've already used for things like Zoom calls, computer, webcam, and make sure that we optimize them, make sure we have them properly configured. So there are going to be 2 pieces to this in addition to your computer, right? The camera and the microphone. Surprise, surprise. But we are going to treat those separately because very commonly people forget about that microphone side, and it's quite important. Let's start with the camera, though, because to the point, what we're covering today is not so much using a high-end professional camera, right? It's not the kind of thing where you've got interchangeable lenses and white balance settings and ISO and all these different photographic configurations to worry about. Maybe you've got some experience with photography, but if you don't, that's going to be way too much. They're very expensive. They're hard to connect to a computer. And so for the kinds of recordings that we want to do, we're basically sticking to webcam, right? And you've almost certainly already got this in some form. You've either got it built into your laptop, or you may have an external one like pictured here. And what are the differences between a webcam and a high-end camera, aside from image quality, right? Well, basically, one is much easier to connect to your computer, because it's either built in or it's just a USB cable. And unlike the professional camera, this one's basically fully automatic. So you're not going to have control over things like exposure, color balance directly. That makes it much easier to use. But it also means that that lack of control is going to require you to basically adjust how it works and is optimized by how you position it and how you set it up, rather than a bunch of software configuration settings. And so let's take a quick look at that right now. What we have here is basically a little demo suite, something that you could pretty easily replicate in your own space in some form or another. And I'm going to go ahead, pop in here. Now, if I go ahead, I set up my webcam here, I think we're going to immediately see a pretty significant issue, right? This camera angle is what we would call suboptimal. And that is the major downside, more even than just quality, of using your built-in webcam, right? It's attached to your laptop. Your laptop may or may not be attached to your lap, certainly your desk. And this is not what we want. This is not the face we want to present to our students. So there are 2 ways to address that. One is just an external webcam. You can see I have a webcam plugged in right here. I've used a little stand to position this. It could go on top of a monitor. It could go anywhere. And if we switch to that, to get that camera eye level, we have a much better presentation to give, right? Yeah. But let's say you don't have an external webcam. Let's say you're traveling. You're only on your laptop. If you can't raise the camera, then raise the laptop. It's a simple step, and it's just a matter of taking it to make that difference. If you don't have a laptop stand, find a pile of books, find a shoebox. If it's not on camera, people don't know about it, right? So as long as it doesn't fall over in the middle of your shoot, it's going to get the job done.
So is the ideal level for, well, I guess it's obvious that your head is nicely positioned in the frame.
Yeah, I mean, basically you want to aim for eye level, right? Maybe plus or minus a couple inches, depending on what you prefer. And you don't necessarily want to frame it so that you're dead center in the frame and you've got all this space above your head, right? Generally, you want to be kind of 3/4 of the way up top. And you can both position yourself and the camera to try to find that frame if you're looking in the screen. And the rest is kind of down to the specifics of your location. One other thing I'll add about location, right, because that's the other thing you really got some say over with a camera setup like this, is some people start to put the background ahead of the foreground. And I think this is an important distinction to make. Background's important. You want to be attentive to it. You want to make sure that there's not like a huge blown out window behind you, for example. This is a good example because these lights are probably too bright. I would probably want to do something about that. You want to make sure there's not a plant behind you that's growing out of your head. But what you don't want to do is, force yourself into the corner of the room with your beautiful bookshelf, perfectly symmetrically composed, but now you're under some overhead track lighting and look terrible, right? So be aware of the background, but position and set up for you. That's the camera, but I want to spend a little more time talking about audio because frankly, audio is just as important, if not more important. Way, way back when I was in film school, one of the first lessons we were given is that sound is half your movie. And in the case of instructional videos, like you're going to be recording on your own, sound may well be more than half your movie. Because you don't actually technically need a camera to make this. Like if you've got a slide deck, if you're walking through a software presentation, it's great to be seen, but it's not strictly necessary. You could just have a whiteboard on screen, work through your problems, and work in the background, but you do need to be heard, right? That's non-negotiable. And it's really important that you be heard well, both because any distraction trying to work through difficult audio is going to pull people away from your actual content. You may have students for whom English is a second language. They don't need that additional difficulty. And if you rely on automated captions, which we'll take a look at later on, the worse the audio quality, the less accurate they're going to be. So a clean recording is really, really worth investing in. And that's going to be a combination of how you configure your space and how you configure your equipment. Let's take a moment and just talk about some considerations before we look at actual examples of microphones. So first thing, everyone just take a listen. Let's take 15 seconds and just listen to the room. Is it quiet in here? Relatively. Does anybody hear anything though? Yeah. Right, what do you hear?
Tons, there's air conditioning.
Yeah, there's the fan of the projector, there's the HVAC, there's the elevator dinging outside. There's all these things that we don't think about day to day because our minds filter them out. And a microphone does not filter them out. So being aware of that is really important when you choose the space you're going to be in, when you choose the timing of when you're going to record. This is New York City, so you can't do everything about every sound, obviously. But you can be a little strategic. You can say, hey, this room right next to the ventilation, maybe this isn't the room I use. Or Tuesday mornings when my neighbors like to use the leaf blower, which happens to be when my neighbors like to use the leaf blower, maybe that's not when I record my videos, right? I want to point this out too because it's something that's easy for us to miss because in a lot of other contexts like Zoom calls, the ways that we use our computers to communicate now, that background noise is eliminated without us ever really thinking about it because of software noise reduction. So when you're on a call with Zoom, you've probably had this experience too where you're talking to somebody and they apologize. Oh, I'm sorry about the dog barking. I'm sorry about the construction. Like, I don't hear anything, right? And that's because there is some nice magic technology working on the back end, but it's not without a cost, right? That's going to reduce the quality of your voice alongside removing that background noise. The worse the background noise is, the more your voice kind of goes away with it. On a Zoom call, you don't mind so much if things sound like a telephone call, but on a proper recording where you're trying to deliver a lesson, that reduction in quality can make a big difference. And more to the point, depending on the software you use, you're not going to have that noise reduction anyway. So you're going to hear a lot more background noise than you're used to, potentially. And then finally, microphone positioning. That's going to be the big thing with all of the different versions of microphones that we look at here, because that's what makes a huge difference in terms of overall sound quality. When it comes to a microphone, I would much, much rather have a $20 microphone that's here than a $3,000 microphone that's 3 feet away, because the quality with distance falls off tremendously when it comes to audio. That's going to, oh, yeah.
Sorry, I just have a caveat to that.
Are you going to talk about shotguns?
Well, I'm going to talk about Bluetooth, right? So
Oh, yeah.
When I set things up in 2020 to have remote meetings, I thought having a nice headset would be the right answer. But it turned out that because it was connected Bluetooth to my phone or my computer, that the Bluetooth issues were coming in and causing audio issues. And then whenever I would just switch to kind of using my laptop mic, everyone said it was much better.
Yeah.
Even though it was further away.
That's a really nice caveat and something we do want to take a look at too. Bluetooth has a couple of things going on. Most Bluetooth devices are going to be doing that noise reduction as well. Sometimes well, sometimes not so well. Most of them, unless they're like specifically a headset, those microphones are up by your ear. And they're doing all sorts of triangulation to supposedly give you better voice quality. Again, sometimes well, sometimes not so well. And the wireless connection on Bluetooth is limited too. So there's a ceiling to that audio quality, even if you're using a really good mic. So that's an important factor as well. I'm glad you brought it up. And also, there are $3,000 microphones that work better at 3 feet, but they're not the ones you would normally use for this kind of recording. So we have a bunch of microphones here. One of the challenges with this is with everything, we've got options and options and options. You know, we've got headset microphones, we've got Bluetooth headsets, we've got wired microphones, lavaliers, desktop microphones. And for this, I'm going to call upon pre-recorded Hugh one more time. Because to demo this live, we'd get feedback, we wouldn't be able to do it in the room. I want everyone to have a chance to hear how these sound, right? And as you're listening, just pay attention. I don't expect you're necessarily going to have the expertise or the language to say like, oh, well, here's the changes in frequency response, right? So rather, just kind of pay attention. Which ones sound nicer to you? Which ones sound worse to you? Where's the threshold and like the quality that you would accept? And we'll take a look at that afterwards. But we're going to spend the next 2.5 minutes just kind of getting a quick round robin demo of all these different options.
So let's run through a few examples of different microphones so you can hear the difference and understand some of the trade-offs with each. And we're starting with a webcam microphone. You can probably tell right away there's huge problems with background noise with this microphone, even though this is not an incredibly loud room. And the audio quality on my voice is not great either. So that's something to keep in mind. And the other thing is that positioning is critical. You want to stay as close as possible to a webcam microphone if you have to use one, as much as you can without making your shot look weird. Because as you start to back away, or as the sound of your voice starts to lower against that background noise, more and more is going to be cut out. It's going to be harder and harder to hear you. Next up, we've got a pair of Bluetooth earbuds, kind of like AirPods, though these are a third-party brand. And these can work okay, but it depends on a lot of variables. So Apple AirPods, especially if they're in use with other Apple devices, can be halfway decent. Apple tends to play nicely with each other. But whether it's Apple or another brand of earbud, keep in mind that that Bluetooth connection they use, that wireless connection, isn't full quality. So there's going to be kind of a maximum quality to the audio that you get out of these. And they're often implying a lot of that noise reduction that we talked about internally, which again can help remove some moderate background noise, but can start to interfere with the clarity of your voice if there's a lot of background noise.
The next available option that's something you might already have access to is a pair of wired earbuds with a microphone built into the cable. Now these aren't going to be professional quality either, and they can have issues with a little bit of background noise depending on how strong your headphone connection is in your computer. But they often have somewhat better audio quality than a wireless pair, and they're the kind of thing that you might still have in a drawer or already on hand. After that, we're starting to move into options you might need to purchase separately. And probably the easiest one of those is a USB lavalier microphone, the kind that clips to your shirt like the one I'm wearing right here. Now, this has an advantage, just like that inline mic, of being in a fixed position all the time. So if you move around, as long as you don't hit it, you're going to sound the same. So you don't need to worry too much about being close to the mic. And it's going to isolate your voice from the background a little better than a webcam microphone. And since it's a USB one, you can plug it straight into your computer without any additional equipment. And as long as you adjust the settings correctly, it should work fine. So this is a nice option as well. It's usually not too pricey. You can get one of these that's maybe for $30 or $40 on Amazon that is still going to get the job done. And then finally, we have what in most situations is probably the best option, but it can also be the hardest to use, which is a dedicated desktop microphone. They make USB versions of these as well, so you can get one that you can plug straight into your computer. Most of the challenge in this is about properly positioning it to make sure that you get the best audio quality it can provide you. They need to be pretty close. You're probably going to see it in your camera if you set one up like this. You might need to get a dedicated stand for it, because sometimes they come with stands that are too short and put the mic too far away. You really want to be very close to these so that they sound the best they possibly can. And you need to be careful about breathing into them, turning away from them, moving things around on your desk, because that will transmit noise through them. So it can take a little bit of practice. But if you're interested in the best possible audio quality for a recording, this is ultimately the way to go. So, a couple key takeaways I want you to keep in mind for that, right? First, obviously there's a whole scale there. What's going to work best for you will depend a little bit on your situation. Generally speaking, I do kind of recommend a USB lavalier as kind of a nice balance between usability, cost, and quality. And then if you really want to kind of deal with the learning curve and get the best possible quality, the desktop mic is the way to go. But the other thing is, whichever microphone you use, what I hope you heard is that that webcam microphone was the one that was really unacceptable, right? And so Whether you spend $100 on like an XLR microphone and plug it into your computer, or you spend $15 on a wired pair of earbuds, just taking that extra step to make sure you've got something sufficiently understandable and decent for your students, I think is well worth doing. So that's our setup, right? Got our camera, got our lighting, got our microphone, we put everything in place. Now we need to record something, and we need to use software to do it. And I've got my eye on the clock here too, and I realize we're running a little behind. I'm going to try and accelerate a little bit, but let me know if anything gets a little confusing. There are tons of options here too. Way too many to go through, right? Ranging from entry level to advanced, where you've got editing functionality, where you can handle multiple video streams, but we're also, usually there's a cost associated. What I want us to look at today is NYU Stream. Surprise, surprise, it's the one with NYU in the name. And the reason for that is because you've all got it. You've all got access to it. We can use it right now. You don't need to install anything. We can open up our laptops, open up a browser, and get going with it. So what I want to do for the next little bit is just demonstrate that, show you the process, and then take a couple of minutes, we might need to shorten the window a little bit, to have you kind of go through that yourself. Get a chance to set it up, make sure the software is working. If you have any weird issues on your computer, we can take a look at them and either address them now or get back to you. But just make sure. It's online. So we'll take a look at it right now, and you can see. What I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over to a web browser. All right? And feel free to follow along as well, but also if you just want to kind of pay attention, we'll be doing this with a little more time right after I demonstrate. I'm going to go to stream.nyu.edu. That's the web address that we navigate to. And what you'll see when we load that up, it looks almost a little bit like YouTube, right? We've got videos from students there, videos from faculty there, from administrators. It sort of is NYU's YouTube, but with more features available. And when you sign on, you might be asked for your NetID and password, same one you use with Brightspace for the initial login. If I go to Add New in the upper right corner, you can see, again, we've got a lot of tools here, more than we're going to discuss today. Some of them are for video hosting, some of them are for quizzes, you can see, interactive video. But the one that we're interested in is called Express Capture. And that is the in-browser video recording tool that you can use to share your screen and record yourself. If I click on that, in the upper left, if you're using Chrome, and generally there as well in most other browsers, it's going to ask you for access to your microphone, your camera. You're going to want to allow for that. And then we have our microphone and camera present, right? And Express Capture is fairly bare bones, but that means it's also a little bit easier to get into. And the settings we change here are settings we'll have to change everywhere. There are three main menus on the bottom: camera settings, audio settings, and screen share settings. Camera settings is pretty straightforward. If I open that up, I can turn my camera on or off, depending on whether I want to record my visual. And if you've got multiple cameras connected, you can choose between them. You'll generally have just one option here if you're just using your laptop right now, but with an external camera plugged in, you can choose that as well. Audio settings is similar. On or off, and then choose your microphone. Again, you might have one. I have a bunch, right? Because I've got the webcam microphone, I've got the laptop microphone, I've got this desktop microphone. And this is a really important setting to pay attention to because you can get the nicest microphone in the world, you can put it in exactly the right spot, and you can not select it, and then you listen to your recording and think, oh no, what's happened? So get in the habit of checking that. Get in the habit of checking it every time because it loves to change when you're not looking. Whether you're using this software, whether you're on Mac, PC, it doesn't matter. It just wants, it's after you, this setting. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to select microphone, which for this computer is this desktop mic right here. And then we have probably the most complicated setting, which is screen share settings. This is also the only one that's off by default. And if I turn that on, at least in Chrome, I get a very specific menu that lets me choose what part of my screen I want to share in the video. I can choose a tab within Chrome, which can be really useful if I have, say, a specific document, right? I can make sure that's all that people see and they see it wherever I'm navigating. I can choose a specific window, and that's really useful if I have, for example, like a software demonstration. I only want to show the Excel window, right? Or MySQL Workbench, or whatever it is you might happen to use. And then if I'm switching between applications a lot, if I'm doing a lot of different recordings, I can share my entire screen, and that just means that students see what I see. And if you do that, I do recommend that you go into your operating system settings and just select Do Not Disturb to make sure no disruptive notifications
The
come up.
second one is like in Zoom where I can flip between screens.
Yeah, it's very similar to the Zoom settings. You can capture like a specific window and only record that. I'm going to go ahead and select entire screen for this, just for the sake of demonstration. Hit share, and I'm just going to record a quick couple seconds of nothing. And of course, with the entire screen, you get this mirror view, right? It's just like pointing a camera at a screen. But I could navigate away from that. I could go to a different site. I have my countdown there. Talk through it. Here we have our Recording Yourself for Teaching resource I discussed earlier, which we'll share a link for, where you can hear about everything we discussed today and more, for example. So I could introduce that, talk through it, and then when I'm done, go back to my recording window, hit stop, and I'm going to be presented with a chance to review what I just recorded. Countdown there, talk through it. Here we have, sounds recorded to me. If I don't like what I did, I could record again. Another reason to have those short videos, right? Because it makes it much easier to go back and fix a mistake.
Can you make yourself a little smaller so I can actually see?
Yeah, so actually this is worth clarifying. Express Capture captures the webcam and the desktop separately. So in the player, when we upload this, people will be able to kind of choose which one they have focus on.
But they can't see both.
They can see both too if they want to. You can do it side by side, do one that's more prominent, the other that's more prominent.
How can I bring about this format? Me next to the slides.
Well, so it'll be user selectable after we upload the video. So they can choose to have this view, or they can choose to focus on the slides. They can choose to focus on you, because both of those screens are. They can. And if we like what we have, we hit Use This, and it uploads immediately to NYU Stream. Right. Now here's where things get a little difficult, because initially I intended for everybody to kind of do a demonstration here. We are running out of time, and I know everyone's got busy schedules. So here's what I'd like to do. I'm going to jump ahead just to talk through what we do with Stream after this. If anybody has time remaining afterwards, wants to do a demo, we can definitely stay on and kind of work through that with you as well.
The file is saved there,
Yes.
and I can access it and download it or whatever.
You can download it, though the easiest way to work with, you can, but the easiest way to work with it on Stream is going to be to actually share it with Stream as well. So let's talk through that real quickly. We have,
Excuse me, let me ask you, can I download it and make it available to the class?
yeah.
Instead of sending them to NYU Stream?
Oh, you can, but you don't need to download it to make it available. So we're going to talk through that right now. Yeah, on Stream, you can actually put that directly in your course site as well, so that they can see it without navigating anywhere else. So let's talk through just some basic Stream features. There are a lot of Stream features to talk through. We're just going to focus on the ones to get things up and running. First of all, we have some data to edit after we finish that video. So we want to rename this to something descriptive. I'm going to call this workshop demo, right? We can add a description to the video. We can add tags to it if we want to organize things and be able to search through it. So it might make sense to add the names of the courses you want to use this with, or some of the key topics, right? And then we have publishing settings available. By default, videos are private, which means no one's actually going to be able to see them. If you select unlisted, that makes them available to anybody you share the link with who has a NetID and password. But they won't show up in search. They won't be like readily accessible. So that's a pretty open-ended way to make video available to people. And then at the bottom of this menu, it's important to note this I agree to the above terms and conditions check mark. You want to check that before you finish, because that's just asserting to the system, hey, I didn't upload copyrighted material. There's not a movie here, right? Like, I have the rights to this, and I'm ready to share it, which for anything you make yourself is not a concern. Now, when all that is done,
Excuse me, between private and public, whatever it is.
oh yeah,
Is it available only to by class students or to anyone?
so unlisted will be available to anyone who has the link. They won't be able to find it independently, but if you and they have a NetID and password to access Stream, they can see it.
What if I want to make it available only to my class?
We're going to talk about that in just one moment. I do want to finish with a couple more Stream features, just so that people are aware of them. So if I go to the media page for that, and I clicked on Go to Media at the bottom of that upload page. If you ever need to find material you've already created, you can go to your name in the upper right, My Media, and then you've got an inventory of everything that you've created or have access to. I'm going to go to the media page for that, and I want to highlight just a couple of settings here that are worth knowing about. The first is this Launch Editor button, because this allows you to perform some very basic edits to your video. And I do mean very basic. But the most common ones are going to be, hey, I hit the record button, I moved a bunch of windows around, and then now I'm shuffling around to stop my recording at the end. And those are super easy to do just by grabbing the handles of this timeline at the bottom, adjusting them to the relevant point at the start of your video, where you actually start to present. Same at the end. And you can trim that video really easily within Stream so that there's not any kind of awkward beginning or ending. And when you're done with that, you can hit save. It'll warn you those changes are permanent, so make sure to double check them. And while that's processing, you can close the editor. I'm going to go back to the media page for this video, and I want to show one other feature that's really important, which is caption and enrich. Because captions are really important for any video content we make. They're kind of a key accessibility feature. And NYU Stream has the ability to automatically generate captions. And assuming you're not talking about kind of complex jargon, sophisticated mathematics, you're just kind of engaged in relatively normal, natural speech, they're pretty good at this point. They're especially good if you've got a good microphone and that audio quality is high. So unfortunately, those don't go on automatically, but they're very easy to request. You just have to make a point to do it by selecting Caption and Enrich under that Actions menu. And you don't need to change any settings here unless the language is different. You can just hit Submit. Those will process and become automatically available to you, or automatically applied to the video once they're ready. So one last thing as we wrap up, and then we can take some time for demonstration for anybody who's able to stay a little longer. And that is exactly your question. How do we get this into Brightspace to share with students, right? So let's go ahead and navigate to a Brightspace page and talk through that process. So I am on just a practice site that I've made here. Not a lot of content. We have lesson 1. We have a couple, template pages. And I want to add my video to this page. There are actually several ways to do this with NYU Stream, but we're going to look at the easiest, most straightforward one right now. And that is to select the unit that I want to include the video in. And then I'm going to go to the upper right. This is in the content page, by the way. I'm going to go to the upper right and select the Add Existing button. And when this first sentence opens up, we won't see NYU Stream here, right? It's available under More. And then we have kind of the full list of available integrations. As you can see, there are quite a few of them. And they're alphabetically organized, so NYU Stream is available here. Now we can select that. And it might take a moment, but what we're going to see is a media library that basically resembles the exact same one that was in Stream directly. And what you're going to see here is all the videos that, again, you've created or have been shared with you that you have publishing access for. For me, because of the work I do, that's a lot of videos. For you, it might just be one after you test this. But if you need to find them, you can change the sorting based on creation date, based on name. You can search for the name. So you can find them in a larger library if you do have a lot accumulated. And then I'm just going to hit the Embed button. And that video is going to appear in the Content tool. We can move it around. We can reposition it. And the nice thing about doing it this way is that, OK, say you left your video private, right? Because you don't want it openly available, but you do want to share it with specific course students. Now, if somebody can access this course site, they can see this video, regardless of those publishing settings. So this is the easiest way to do it on kind of a course-specific basis, as opposed to changing those publishing settings more broadly. So that is a bit of a rushed wrap-up, but I wanted to make sure we covered all that and had a chance to see how to upload and share material in the time that we had. If you're interested, though, in having somebody kind of work through you with Express Capture, check it out, see if you get any kind of weird errors, because it's always one thing to look at it in a demonstration. It's always another thing to do it yourself and find out that your computer's not working the way that everyone told you it would. Definitely let us know. Also, if you continue to do this, and I hope that you do, I hope this workshop is a start, but a start that gets continued with additional practice. As you run into more problems, as you have other issues, or as you find OK, I've got a handle on this now and I'd like to up my game, I'd like to find a way to whiteboard on my computer so I can share something a little more dynamic than just slides, right? Or I'd like to add another camera, or I'd like to refine my lighting setup. This is what we're here to help with. So give us a call, or rather send us an email, or schedule a consultation session with us. Thank you so much, everybody.